Welcome to Thriving Together, Stories from CCEJ, a podcast from the California Conference for Equality and Justice. Our mission is to educate and empower youth and adults to lead change for equity and justice in our communities. I'm Daniel Solis, your host. It's summer 2024, and many people are sharing with CCEJ that their communities feel more divided than ever, which means our work to build bridges of understanding and solidarity is more important than ever. CCEJ has been helping communities through times like these since the early 1920s, when we first were the National Conference of Christians and Jews, later the National Conference for Community and Justice, and now CCEJ. In this episode, we're highlighting a conversation between Lewis and Jeff, who met at NCCJ's Brotherhood Camp in 1974, and have been friends for more than 40 years. In January 2021, when this conversation was recorded at our online alumni reunion, the struggle felt very real. But these alumni share words of wisdom that can inspire us to keep working for change together. Let's listen.
Hi, folks. I am Lewis Knox, and I had the pleasure of being at camp in 1974. It's where I met Jeff, and we have been very close friends for 45 years. And I'll talk more, but I just wanted to say that. Hey, Jeff.
Hey, Lewis. Thank you. So Jeff Schaffer, he, him, his. Lewis has more to his story that he went to camp many times after that, but I just did that one summer, 1974. So it's amazing to think then. And I never got far from Los Angeles. I live in the San Fernando Valley, and my career has been mostly in nonprofits and philanthropy, and I now work as a philanthropic advisor.
Beautiful. Thank you both. And yes, we definitely want to hear about, the friendship that obviously started at camp. I saw someone in the chat say, that's friendship goals. Like that, you've been together for 40 something years. So definitely want to hear all about that. We would we all have our kind of journey in coming to camp, and we have someone who might have brought us to camp, or that one person that maybe we really connected with. And I'd love to hear kind of your camp origin story, right? How did you end up at camp? What do you remember about the experience? Maybe some of the stuff Sada was taking us through reminded you of some experiences you had. So I'd love to hear how did you get to camp? What was it like? What do you remember?
Well, I'll go ahead and start off. I think that, that was the summer before junior year in high school. And it was really a transformational time for me. Just a lot of things going on that summer. I don't know how. I went to Brotherhood Camp somehow through my mom. I went down to an encounter group at UC San Diego. I was the only person, a minor, that was part of the group. And it was a 70s thing, I guess. I shared in our icebreaker that the thing I remember most about camp were those evening sessions where we got into the heavy topics of whether you say the isms or if it was gender, religion, race, and those were the evenings that I'd say even till today stay with me.
So I came to camps. I grew up in foster homes in Southern California. And when I went to high school, I was fortunate enough that my foster parents had retired from a career of restaurateurs, and then we moved to Inglewood, California. And at the time, Inglewood was pretty much all white. I went to Inglewood High School, and I integrated Inglewood High School, and I talk to people now, and they go, "You did what?" But Inglewood was all white in 1974. When I went there, they integrated based on a court order decree, which my parents we didn't know that. When I got there, they wouldn't let me register because they said that we had to prove that we lived in Inglewood. So it took a month, for the first bill to get generated when you buy a house. And so after a month, they let me in the school. The school immediately began to have racial issues, and I got involved in student government, and my student government director came to me and said, "Lewis, there's this camp called Brotherhood Camp that I think that you would be really great at, and that you would add to, and you would get something out of it." So I went to Brotherhood Camp in 1974. And I have to tell you honestly that Brotherhood Camp has been the most transformative experience of my 61 years. It's important to say that because, we're all living in this absolutely crazy time. And I have to tell you, I was so excited about doing this with you all because I needed some healing. And already when I saw all of your faces, those beautiful tapestry of different colors and gender, and on 2 pages of I just started crying. So by the way, I cry a lot. So I'm 6'7" and I cry a lot. So I'm gonna cry. I'll just let you know. It was so amazing to me. And at this time where it seems like our country is falling apart, it isn't, but it feels that way. I fall back on the virtues and the lessons and the teachings that I brought from Brotherhood Camp. There is nothing like this experience. Jeff and I have been very close friends. We have cried together. We have laughed together. His wife went to my high school, and I don't know what version of the story he tells, but the version that I tell, I introduced them.
Thank you, Louis. My goodness, I'm like, we need to create a museum or something to NCCJ and all the work that has come from it in CCEJ and just all the beautiful things that have emerged. And so I guess, yeah, I'd love to know more about the impact of camp, on you all in terms of, did it impact your careers and the choices you made and what you do now with your families? So just very curious to know kind of what the impact of camp has left on you all and how you continue to build upon that camp experience you had.
Yeah, I guess I'd say that camp gave me a lens through which to see, understand, approach people different from me, and to accept and understand people and appreciate people different from me. And I think that that's something that, stayed with me forever and, fostered an interest in getting to know people different from me. And I guess maybe, one high point in that, I was a Peace Corps volunteer. So I lived on a little island in Micronesia, North Pacific, halfway between Hawaii and Japan, where I was cut off from the world for 2.5 years. And, that became home. And I've been fortunate. My career's been in nonprofits as I managed, but there's been a thread of international work throughout my career. And so I've just been so fortunate to travel to many places, but not as a tourist, but to engage in development work and supporting efforts other places and getting to know and value people who, just amazing people that, sacrifice so much of themselves and their own life for the betterment of their community. And I think that camp experience helped to launch me on that road.
For me, the camp experience basically lives with me every day. I decided that I wanted to be a civil rights lawyer based on the work that we did from camp. And so the work that I do now is a great deal. I became a nonprofit attorney, actually. I do a lot of nonprofit work, creating nonprofits for folks. And then when the AIDS epidemic hit in 1982, I was closeted, by the way, when I went to camp in 74 and 75. But around, 79 or so, they started having a day on sexuality. And so I felt right at home, but it took a long time. I was very closeted then. But I moved here in 82, and between 1982 and 2002, I went to 200 funerals. Everyone I know died of AIDS, from my church, from my jobs, from my personal life. And so I did a lot of work in trying to get the new drugs. I was on the Ryan White committee in San Francisco, just really trying to get people to say, hey, say the word AIDS, say that, gay people were dying, and no one cared. And so I spent 20 years in that fight, housing people with AIDS. I was with the Ark of Refuge for 15 years. So most of my life's work has been in nonprofit and social services. And I'm so glad that that's what I do. I can sleep at night and feel really good about the work we do.
So appreciate the work that you're doing now. I know a lot of our alumni go on to do amazing things. So we're super excited that we have a lot of you here tonight. Obviously, social justice is not a stagnant thing. And so I'm curious to know from you, how have you seen the work, we talk about the work with regard to racial justice, gender justice, all these things. How have you all seen it transform since you first went to camp? And also connected to that, what are your hopes for future campers?
I said then, and I would say now, that every person could learn something from attending this camp. I'd love to see it mandatory. for folks before they finish high school, because I think that if they did so, we'd have a better society. People would be in a better place to deal with differences. And I don't think we would see an insurrection happening in our lifetimes. So high hopes, high hopes. And I have high hopes because of what we learned at camp, right? That we have the ability to change ourselves, and we can change the world if we do it just one person at a time. I believe in the values of camp. I believe in the statements of how we communicate and how it makes us better people. I've seen the law change in many areas, right? I've seen civil rights move in places that I never thought they would happen when I was 14. I never thought that I would have some of the opportunities that I have had. The reason I love this country, very much like John Lewis, because Black people ask me all the time, how in the hell do you love this country? They do. And my elevator speech is simply that I don't know of any other place where a kid born in poverty to in a very bad situation with drugs and alcohol can leave that world, get a great education, and transform his or her life and then other people's life also. I adopted my son, who's now 30 years old, when he was 7. And a lot of it, I did it because of the stuff that I learned in camp, that we are our brothers and sisters keepers. Today, Jason is a banker. He has twin kids, and I'm a grandpapa. And so there's another generation. And so I want this world to be great for them. And the only way that we make it great for my grandkids is that we keep the fight alive today. So grateful to see folks, young folks, many of you folks in the Black Lives Movement over the summer. So grateful to see that. We have the power to change this world, and we can do it, and we are doing it. But the first person we change is ourselves, that person in the mirror.
Yeah. I mean, if whether it's tonight or some other time, Louis, I think you could say more about, the adversity that you faced, the challenges that you faced in your life, and how you managed to still approach the world with a positive attitude that you do, with the love for people, for your friends, for family. I think, there's a really important lesson there.
I grew up at a time where racism was kind of vibrant. I mean, people it wasn't hidden. I remember the Watts riots in 1965. I was 5 years old. I was sitting on the porch watching all the adults talk about the rioting that was happening just a few blocks away. I remember that. I always wanted to be an integrationist, and I don't really know where that came from. I don't know. Nobody said that, you should have some white friends, but somewhere I learned that every Black person needs a white friend, and every white person needs a Black friend, and a Latino and Asian, you need them. And I just, growing up in an inner city of poverty in Watts, my mom left me in a house that was on fire when I was 3 years old. I was yanked out of the fire by a white police officer, a white fireman. I distinctly remember, I'm 61 years old. I can still remember I was 3 years old standing in a kitchen that was on fire all around me. And when he broke the glass and kind of ushered me to the window, he was wearing all of this 1960 kind of gear that looked like a monster. And he said, come to the window. And I said, no. And he finally took off his helmet. And I said, oh, that's not a monster. That's a man. I go, that's a white man. I've seen one of them on TV. And so when I went to Inglewood High and was in an environment, I wanted to build bridges. And I think that was the thing that my advisor saw in me, because I was a person who had Black friends and white friends, and that was unusual. And so I went to camp. What camp gave me is the language. It gave me the philosophies. It gave me an understanding of the isms in a way that I had never understood before. I came back to that same high school that was in terrible racial conflicts, from there out. And we started a Brotherhood Camp club right there on campus. And so I have seen the power of this work, not only in my own self, and I have to keep coming back. I have to keep coming back to the well and say, you know what, this too will change, because I get angry. There are days when I'm not happy with people, but I know at the end of the day, Brotherhood gave me a place to stand while I was putting it all together, and I wanted to be around to do so for other people.
I think, the progress of history, it's 2 steps forward, 1 step back. I still have the positive view that we're moving in the right direction. And so, as Lewis is saying, reminiscing with first woman I dated, first girl I dated at that time, 1973, Carolyn, beautiful woman, Black woman, and, got to be part of her family and her life. But, even here in Los Angeles, sometimes we would be out in public and people would give us dirty looks, and I don't know. I hope that doesn't happen in Los Angeles anymore, but I'm not sure. I think things are better, but then you kind of flash forward, and even if things weren't getting better, we can't give up the struggle to try and make things better. And so now I have 2 sons. My wife Reina is an immigrant from Nicaragua. So we have 2 boys that are Latino Jewish. One is gay, figuring out how to navigate their way in the world with their identities, and I learn from them as they share with me what their experience is navigating the world. And so I think that we're still continuing the work, and we're still learning in some cases from people much younger than ourselves.
Mm-hmm. True that.
Do you want to uplift? Folks are affirming you all in the chat, and just things are resonating. I'm seeing connections happening too. So folks are connecting. Glad to see that happening. But yeah, as our kind of closeout question, you all talked about when you first went to camp and kind of the journey and how that's impacted you now. So if you could tell yourself anything, go back to your younger self, maybe in 1974 again, what would you tell young Lewis and young Jeff?
Yeah, I to make it not a long answer, I would say, be honest with yourself, be open, be accepting, don't be scared to put yourself out there. And actually, one of the best pieces of advice that I received as a young person was, don't be afraid to make an ass of yourself.
So what I would say to myself is, there is nothing wrong with you. You are okay just like you are. And then I would remind myself to be gentle with myself. I think that's what I would tell myself, those things. I think that when we are young, super young, often we have a lot of self-doubt. Right. And I know I did. I was scared of my shadow. I was worried that everybody knew I was gay when I walked in the room and had no power. I wanted to disappear. And of course, when you're 6, 7, you can't really disappear. You're okay just like you are. There's nothing wrong with you.
Always have been.
Thank you both so much. I know that resonates for me. I assume it resonates for folks, especially in this moment that we're just dealing with so many layers of struggle and so many things happening right now. So just deeply appreciate you all being on this call, taking the time. Thank you, Lewis and Jeff. And if we can get a round of applause for our alums here who share their stories and share so vulnerably. Deeply appreciate y'all. Yeah. Any last words y'all want to share with the group?
I just want to thank the group for doing this work. This is not easy work. It can be fun, but in times like this, it's hard. It's hard taking a stand and putting yourself out there. And it must be crazy for so many of you, because what Jeff and I did not have to contend with was social media. I can imagine in a world where every time I made a comment, 10,000 people gave me their opinion behind a screen. But the work is important, and I'm glad you're there, because I want a great world for my grandkids, for your kids and grandkids. And the only way it happens is that we pass the baton. And so when I look at this screen and see all of your magnificent faces, I'm overjoyed that you're doing this work, and it works continues. So thank you, and thank you for having us. I love that guy, 45 years. And many, many more.
Yeah, I think that, we've gotten to a certain age where you kind of reflect back on, the arc of a lifetime, and you look at what's important. And so, like, the friendship that we share, it's only more valuable as time goes by. But the fact that we still can reflect on camp and how valuable it was to us. And so we're here because we want to be supportive. So hopefully, the organization, you individuals, if there's a way that we can be of support to you, you'll let us know.
So I just want to say I'm available to go to camp. I just want to say that. I just want to put that out there.
Again, thank you so much, Louis and Jeff, for sharing your stories and sharing your voices with us. A lot of folks are feeling very affirmed in the chat. Someone shared, when they go up to camp, they wonder, do things stick? Are people remembering things? And clearly you two are a testament to that. So thank you for sharing time and space.
Thank you again to NCCJ camp alumni Louis Knox and Jeff Schaffer for this honest conversation that holds up through the years. If you're interested in learning more about CCEJ's Building Bridges Camp, visit our website at cacej.org/building-bridges. CCJ's podcast is sponsored in part by LA vs. Hate, a coalition of partners led by the LA County Human Relations Commission who are committed to preventing and ending hate. Once again, I'm Daniel Solis, and don't forget to subscribe to our podcast to hear more stories of thriving together.